Good day, students. Today we are going to talk employer relationship under BA 2 or Labor Law and Social Legislation. This is Grace Nabanalan, your teacher from business. So let us discuss about the elements of employer-employee relationship. So when can you say there is a so-called employer-employee? So when an employer hires a new employee, he is not just bringing a new member of the workforce aboard, he is also starting a new. So establishing the so-called employee-employer relationship. So to test if a relationship exists, the so-called Aspirable Test is being used. So the selection and the engagement of the employee, the payment of wages, the power of dismissal, and the employer's power to control the employee with respect to the means and methods by which the work is to be accomplished. So this is the so-called as the control test, which is very important. So this letter A, letter B, letter C, and letter D are considered as questions. So if one of them is present, then there is what we call as employee-employer relationship. Or all of these four items are present, there is a so-called employee-employer relationship. Okay, why is there need for us to determine whether there is a relationship that exists? It is important to determine whether an employment relationship exists because of the effect of our law, or what we call as the labor code of the Philippines. So we have generally, if there is an employer-employee relationship, the labor code applies. If there is no relationship, then the labor courts does not have jurisdiction. So maybe you go to the barangay, seek help from the barangay captain, or if not, you go to other courts, let's say the criminal courts, or let's say sa Sangguniang Bayan. Okay, so there are many courts in the Philippines that specializes on certain or certain faults people do because of many things, so many reasons. Okay, so that is the importance of determining the relationship between the employee. Another is that when we say selection and engagement, it refers to the choice of the employer to hire the services of a worker and his commitment to keep latter as his employer. That is the meaning of selection engagement. So we have also payment. It refers to the compensation that an employee gets for work performed. Also dismissal. This is a component of the employer's power to move or organize employees. And all, it refers to the employer's power to regulate how the work is done. This is the most important aspect of the fourfold test. Okay, so do you receive payment for the work done, or is there selection and engagement? Okay? Is there dismissal? Does the employer have the power to dismiss employees? Okay? Does the employer have control over the employee? So these are what we call as the fourfold test being conducted to determine whether there is a relationship. And just one of them can already prove that there is relationship between the employer and it determines that person an employer. Okay, what about what we call as independent contractor? What is independent contracting? So job contracting, legitimate job contracting or subcontracting refers to an arrangement whereby there's a principal, there's a main person who's going to put out or farm out with a contractor, a subcontractor, the performance or completion of a specific job. So let's say, for example, I want to create a house. I cannot create it since I do not have the knowledge on how to do it. So I'm going to look for an engineer who's going to sign a contract with me that I'm going to pay this amount of money and that he's going to build my house on the specifications. Okay, and that's what we call as job contracting. So if the engineer is going to do the job, then I am what we call as the principal, and he is considered as the contractor. Is it also possible that this engineer or contractor as another person? Say, for example, the engineer is going to look for a person who specializes on making cabinets. Okay? And that subcontractor is going to work in my house. Then this subcontractor and contractor are considered as employees, and the principal is the person who gives work. Okay, so there's a predetermined period regardless whether such job, work, or service is to be performed or completed within or outside the premises of the, whether it's going to be done in my compound or it's going to be done in the outside. This is still considered as under job contracting, subcontract. So who is going to become the employer here and who's going to become the employee? Okay, let us see. So the contractor carries on a distinct and independent business and partakes the contract work on his account under his own responsibility according to his own manner and method, free from the control and direction of his employer or principal in all matters connected with the performance of his work except as to its result. Okay, the contractor has substantial capital or investment. The contractor must have enough money to do the job. The agreement between the principal and the contractor or subcontractor assures the contractual employees entitled to all labor and occupational safety and health standards, free exercise of the right to self-organization, security of tenure, and social welfare benefits. What does that mean? So the employees or the workers are considered as employees of the subcontractor. And the subcontractor is considered an employee of the contractor. The contractor is considered as employee of the principal. Okay, what if the subcontractor or the contractor is not going to give what is due? Okay? What is due to the employees, like for example, safety, health standards, free exercise of the self-organization, security of tenure, and social welfare benefits, then it would be now responsibility of the principal. Okay? And the principal is going to sue the contractor or the subcontractor for not giving what is due. So I will repeat. The employees are considered as employee of the subcontractor. And the subcontractor together with the employees are considered as employees of the contractor. Okay? And the contractor, subcontractor, and employees are considered as employees of the principal. But who gives the benefits? So the subcontractor should give the benefits to the contractor gives the benefits to the subcontractor. But if these are going to be by default, they won't do their responsibilities, and the principal is considered as the, okay? Then the principal has the right to look after the contractor and subcontractor that he is going to be paid what he had spent for the, okay, so what about the difference between job contracting and labor only. So when we say job contracting, this is valid and recognized by law, while labor only contracting is prohibited. I would like you to highlight the word labor only contracting is prohibited. What is the difference? Why this is considered prohibited while the other one is considered valid? So a finding that a contractor is a labor only contractor is equivalent to a declaration that there is an employer-employee relationship between the principal and the employees of the labor-only contractor. Labor-only contractor means that you provide people only, no equipments, you do not have money, you do not have ways and means, you only have people. Okay, that's labor only contracting. While job contracting means you have equipments, you have machines, you even have money to do the job. And that's what we call as job contracting. So job contracting is valid. I will repeat, labor only contracting is prohibited or considered as illegal. So for the labor only contractor, since it is illegal, then the person who recruits people is going to become the employer, and the people he contracted are considered as his employees. So in such a case, the labor only contractor shall be responsible to the workers in the manner and extent as if said workers were directly general. Labor only contracting is illegal in the Philippines. Okay, so how are we going to determine the employee-employer relationship? We have a two-step test for employee-employer. We have the so-called as control test and the economic test activity. So for the control test, you determine who exercise the power of control as to the results, but also as to the means and the methods by which the employee perform his work. So there is an employer who's going to dictate how the work is going to be done, okay, and how the results look like, okay, and the means and methods on how these outputs, okay, are going to be. That's what we call as control test. And if there is somebody doing that, then he or she is considered as the employee. Employer. Okay. We also analyze the underlying economic realities of the work and the relationship of the parties. This is what we call as economic test activity, most especially the presence of wages. Okay, and determining all this is the problem of our courts. It's a problem of our courts. So if you are an employee in the future and you have problems with your employer, you have to determine, you have to establish the relationship by providing documents regarding these two control tests and test activity. Okay, so there is a sample court case on the determination of the relationship. It was a court case in Sevilla versus Court of Appeals. Happened in 1980. Okay, and it has something to do with the determination of the existence of the employment relationship. And it was being spelled on the following. So the extent to which the services performed are an integral part of the employer's business. If it's part of the employer's business, then that is employer. Okay, the extent of the worker's investment in equipment and facilities. Also the nature and degree of control exercised by the employer, the worker's opportunity for profit and loss, the amount of initiative, skill, judgment, or foresight required for the success of the claimed independent enterprise, the permanency and duration of the relationship, and the degree of dependency of the worker upon the employer for his continued employment of business. So these were being determined in the case of Sevilla versus Court of Appeals. If these are being established, then they are considered as factors to be evaluated for the determination of the existence of the employment relationship. Okay, So if you are going to become an employee, here comes the different types of employment that you are going to have. So we have regular or permanent employee. So you will become regular or considered permanent when you perform activities that are very necessary and they are very desirable in the business or trade of the employer. So they enjoy the benefit of security of tenure provided by the Philippine Constitution and cannot be terminated for causes other than those provided by law and only after due process is given. Okay, and I would like you to highlight words like they enjoy the benefit of security. We have also we have also cannot be terminated for causes other than those provided by law. Their due process is given. So that's for irregular and permanent employees. This employee receives his or her salary monthly. They receive 13-month pay. They receive other benefits which are provided by institution. They are covered by the Philippines. Okay, what about probationary? So if we call you a probationary employee, you are an employee whose employment is to undergo a trial period. Okay, during which your trial period, the employer determines your fitness to qualify for regular employment. You see the picture in here? So you are going to be hired as probationary or trial employees. So if they will see that you have desirable characteristics or traits or attitudes, then after 180 calendar days, under our Article 296 in our labor code, you are considered as you go up as a regular or permanent. So what if 180 calendars will exceed and your employment is not yet terminated? It's going to be automatic that you are going to become permanent employee with the following exceptions. So we have apprenticeship and teaching in the private sector. So for example, Norma Colleges is considered a private school and we have lots of teachers. They are not going to undergo the 180 calendar days, but they're going to have six semesters of teaching before they're going to be considered as permanent. Okay. So we have also term or fixed employment. So from the word term or fixed, there is a certain definite period of time. So a contract is usually being signed by the employee and the employment dates are very, very specific. For example, a period of 6 months or a period of 12 months. Okay? That's what we call as term or fixed term employment. Are we considered regular? No. Probationary? No. You are under term fixed employment. Another one is what we call as project employment. So you are a project employee. So from the word project, you are going to be hired for the purpose of creating a specific project. So for how long? It depends upon the project. So it can last 2 years or 5 years. So let's say, for example, a project employee may acquire the status of a regular employee or permanent employee when they are continuously rehired after the completion of the project. So let's say, for example, after 180 days or even more than that. So let's say after the project is being done, it took you, let's say, 2 years to finish the project and you are rehired. That is considered as continuous work and you can jump from being a project employee to a regular or permanent. So most especially if you are being rehired for the performance of vital or necessary and indispensable activities for the business of the Okay, another is seasonal employee. So when we say seasonal employee, you are being hired for the season. Okay, so there are some activities which are highly seasonal. So for example, we have in the food and beverage, hospitality industry, in the retail industries, and in factories. For example, um, the factory for ham. So they are going to be in demand during the months of November, December, and the season, New Year. But during the months of June, July, August, seems like ham is not. So what happens? You can be hired for the season or due to peak products. Okay, and you can name some. What are some of the firms that are hiring employees for these positions, seasonal employment? Okay, we have also casual employment. So when you are considered a casual employee, you are you are hired not usually necessarily or primarily related to the employer's business or trade. The definite period of employment should be made known to the employee at the time they started rendering service. If the employee has rendered service for at least 1 year in the same company, whether the casual employment is continuous or not, as long as you accumulate 1 year, you shall be considered a regular or permanent employee with respect to the activity they are employed and will continue rendering service while such activity exists. So you have to take note that when you are a casual employee, most often your work is not directly related to the employer's business or trade. So there's a possibility that you are hired because your employer wants clerical work, okay, or a side employee who's going to do things which are necessary but they are not very vital to the operation of business. So that's for casual. Okay, we are going to discuss the following questions. So when does an employee is, you can make use of Google to support your answer. By the way, I do not like very long answers, just 2 sentences can do. Under the control test, which factor period in the term existence of an employee relationship? What's the difference between an employee and an independent contractor? What are the different kinds of employment? What is the difference between seasonal and going to give example? I would like you to cite companies, name companies. Do not simply copy and paste definitions and first company. I would like you to write real stories, yes, who are doing, who employs people or that who employs these different. So that's the end of our topic regarding employee-employer relationship. Thank you very much for watching.